Some people leave the military and never really come home. Some find another uniform. And some spend their lives learning how to carry the weight without letting it crush them. Tonight's guest was raised in Muhlenberg County, an Air Force veteran, a firefighter, a paramedic, instructor, and leader who's worn just about every hat this job can hand you. But this conversation isn't about titles. It's about the moments that shape you, the leaders who teach you what not to become, the calls you don't talk about, the things you see that don't always make sense, and the quiet battles nobody sees when the lights shut off. Jared Southerland has lived the fire service from the bottom up. He's wrestled with mental health, sought help when it got heavy, and refuses to stay silent so others don't feel alone. He's unapologetic in his faith, grounded in humility, and honest about the cost of service. This isn't a highlight reel. This is a conversation about leadership, brotherhood, belief, and survival. Pull up a chair. This is Fireside Chats.
Falls when the lights grow dim, but the dark remembers all of him. Ashes of a gentleman scattered in the rain. Every victory carved from pain. No crown, no throne, no one to blame. Just smoke and the echo of my name. Ashes of a gentleman carried by the wind. The story ends where it begins. Raise your glass, my time has come. Play one last song, then I'm done. I build my own prayer on broken.
So, Jared, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Uh, I remember when you walked in, reached my fire department, barely 18 years old, eager to learn and full of, well, I won't say it on here, but you were just full of it,
Yeah.
and now I just want to say how proud of you I am. You took it on and now you're the chief of the biggest department in the county. You're doing this podcast, which I'm sure takes you out of your comfort zone, but you felt the need to do it, so you're doing it.
Yeah, it's going really good too. I mean, a lot of people are interested in it. And I'm pretty happy. It actually does a lot better than I figured it would do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people interested in this type of thing, and you don't get it on TV or anything like that. So good for you for taking that on.
Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. So, so you were raised in Muhlenberg County.
Yes, yes. And before we get any further, I need to
Well, that's right.
I need to read the disclaimer here.
Yep. Go ahead.
All right. I am employed by the city of Madisonville at the Madisonville Fire Department, but I'm not being paid for this interview, nor am I here on their behalf. All thoughts and opinions are 100% my own and may not reflect the views or positions of the city of Madisonville and or the Madisonville Fire Department.
Dum. So, before the badge, before the pager, what was it like growing up here in Muhlenberg County before you ever got into any of this?
Well, man, I know a lot of people probably say this and think this, but I think I grew up in one of the best times to grow up. I was born in '82, so my childhood was '80s and '90s, kind of the end of the analog age, beginning of the digital age. Kids or people my age, we remember what it was like to be bored.
Yeah.
We cut our teeth on Nintendo and Super Nintendo, but we played outside. We got to see the birth of the internet, but we were able to have a childhood that wasn't documented, wasn't recorded. If I did something stupid, everybody didn't know it.
Yeah, that's what kills me too. Because now kids will do stupid stuff, and everybody's like, "I can't believe, man, I did way worse than that."
Yeah.
Nobody ever just never caught it on video.
It just disappeared
Yeah,
into the oblivion,
yeah, it's just a story.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, um, I grew up here, and I'm not trying to make something out of this, but it is important. My parents divorced when I was 9, not a nasty divorce or anything like that. So I spent half of my time at my dad's, which he lived on 431 between South Carrollton and Mormon. And my mom bought a house in Greenville. So half of my life was spent, kind of living out in the country, running through the woods, playing army out in the woods, fishing, shooting guns. The other half was in Greenville, riding my bike through town, going to the city pool, playing basketball at the park, kind of best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I was talking to my sister a couple weeks ago now, and we were talking about how one of the worst things about having a good childhood is you don't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Kind of the innocence of a child, where you you just think everybody has that life, and it doesn't take that long in this job to realize that's definitely not the case.
Yeah. That's the worst part. You can't do nothing for them either.
No, I know you, and I didn't know at the time that not everybody's mom cooked their favorite foods, not everybody's dad played catch with them in the yard. I never went to bed hungry. I never had to worry about who was coming in my bedroom after the lights went out. I just had a good childhood.
Yeah. So what kind of values were instilled in you
Well, my
in childhood?
my parents always, and I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't have most of what I wanted as a kid. I was
Yeah.
very fortunate, but it was transactional too. There was, you get good grades, you do your chores, you do things, and then you get something. Everything wasn't just handed to you.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things that I hung on to that my mom said was, anything worth doing not going to be easy. And then my dad, I remember being a kid, and something come up, and I'd be like, I can't do that, Dad. He'd be like, well, can't never could do anything.
Yeah.
And I hung on to that. They taught me things like that, and of course, I was brought up in a very strong Southern Baptist home where I didn't have to get up on Sunday morning and ask if we were going to church. It was, unless you were sick, you were going.
Yeah.
And at the time, as a kid, that wasn't cool. That wasn't what I really enjoyed. But looking back on it now, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. My parents the same way. Every time the doors was open, we had to be there. So you graduated in 2000. Did you feel a pull toward the fire service then, or?
No, actually, I didn't know anything about the fire service growing up. None of my family was firefighters. I didn't know any. Um, so no, that was something that appealed to me later on in life.
So you went to the military?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
pulled you that way?
Well, I joined uh, what they called the delayed entry program during my junior and senior year. That way I could secure my job. How I talked my parents into letting me do that, I don't know. I guess
Huh.
they figured there was hope I might not go through with it. But so I joined my junior and senior year because I was always a good student. A's, mostly A's, some B's. But the thought of sitting through a 4-year college or university or classroom, however you want to look at it, but it just sounded terrible to me.
Yeah.
And I grew up, like I said, the 80s and 90s where, and I'm not knocking the educational system or anything like that, but any kind of blue collar work or a trade or anything like that, they kind of looked down on. It was always, you need to do something with computers. You need to go to college. Yeah, college, college, college. You know, I just, I knew I couldn't do nothing.
Yeah.
So I
You
couldn't
gotta
sit
do
around.
something.
So I figured the military was best for me. I'd like to say it was a deep rooted patriotism, but I don't think that's what it was. It was,
Yeah.
of course, I've always loved our country, but mainly I wanted, and like most kids that grew up around here, I just had to get out of Muhlenberg County,
Yeah.
you know, see, and so that's why I went that route.
So you joined the Air Force. Why the Air Force?
Well, I like a good quality of life. I did some research. Of course, back then, there was a little bit on the internet you could read about, not much. But my stepdad was also in the Air Force, so I guess I kind of had a connection to that. It sounds it sounds very counterintuitive now, looking back, but we, as a nation, hadn't been in what you would call forever wars and large scale skirmishes since Vietnam.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to marginalize First Desert Storm or Grenada or Panama or Mogadishu because men died there, and it was real to the guys that fought those skirmishes,
Yeah.
those battles. But as far as anything large scale, going to war, having to do what the military real job is, it was not even on my radar. And that now that seems pretty silly looking back. And I guess that's my issue sometimes with some of these recruiters that come into the hospital is that they come in there and they promise to the world, fly, hey, you can fly the space shuttle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They tell you everything. And a lot of what they tell you is true. But the job of the military is to bring violence on your fellow man. And so 15 months into my enlistment, 9/11 happened. So things changed drastically. It was no longer, oh, well, this was just a good way to pass 4 years. It was time to get after it.
Yeah. What was that like, the day that it happened?
I listened to your interview with Jerry Aders, and he talked about how pretty the sky was that morning. And it was, it was pretty here, I guess, pretty in New York. It was pretty. I was stationed in South Dakota at the time, and it was just a beautiful morning. And while South Dakota is on Mountain Time, so they're 2 hours behind Eastern Time, we had to be at work every morning at 0700. And in the military, if you're not there 15 minutes early, you're late. I believe the first plane hit around 8:50, 8:53 Eastern Time, which would have been 6:53 Mountain Time. We were all getting to work, getting things together, doing morning formation, that kind of thing, and went back to sit over at our side of the hangar and get things ready for the day. And the phone rang, and the crew chief, he picked it up, and he said, "Are you serious?" And he hung up the phone and looked at us, and he said, "Well, we're going to war." Of course, we were like, "Well, what's going on?" And we had a TV in our break room about the size of your laptop, that 1990 tube TV. We went in there and watched it, and we got in there, and of course, both planes had hit at that time. And, it was just, even being in the military, it seemed so far removed because I'd never been to New York at the time. It just seemed like it was a million miles away still. But there was a woman that was stationed with me, and she was from New York. And I looked over at her, and she just had these big tears rolling down her eyes. And I was like, well, this is real.
Yeah.
And then at that point, things changed. It went from a 40-hour work week to 72 at round the clock, getting things ready. And I remember I didn't leave base for like 5 or 6 weeks because the security to get in the base was just so tight. It was such a job to get on and off base. And it's funny looking back now, my my stepdad, before I left, he's like, "I hope you get stationed in South Dakota because that's where he was stationed."
Mhm.
I was like, "Yeah, fat chance, man. I'm not putting that." I was naive enough to think whatever I put on my what they call a dream sheet of where you want to be stationed was where I would be stationed. So South Dakota was not on there, but the Air Force put you where the Air Force wants you or needs you. So anyway, they came and visited me about 3 weeks before 9/11 in August of 2001, and it happened to be during the time of our base air show. And I have a picture of me and my mom standing out on the flight line underneath a B-1 bomber, and there was people in lawn chairs underneath the wings, trying to find shade where they could 'cause it was
Yeah.
hot. And that just restrictions and security was so loose at that time. It's just strange to look back at it because now, or not now, but uh, 3 weeks later, it took you 2 hours to get on base.
Wow.
I remember when I finally did leave to go somewhere, I come back and my dad had given me some basic hand tools, just in case I needed them. And I kept them behind the seat of my truck in a green ammo can. And come through base and they run the mirrors underneath your vehicle and you had to swallow them through the concrete barriers. And I get up there and the guy, he's a security police. He said, "Go ahead and step out. I got to look in your vehicle." So I did. He flips my seat up, and there's that green army can, ammo can. And the next thing I know, I'm looking at the barrel of an M16. He's 19 wanting to shoot me. I'm 19 not wanting to get shot, and I'm like, I'm on your team here. But it's just, that never, none of that before that. They just waved you in.
Yeah.
And so it just changed so many aspects of our lives, not just in the military, but in life in general. It really,
I wonder if it's still that strict to get in there. It's loosened up some.
I'd say it probably loosened up some, but not completely, because I mean, look at the airport. It's 25 years later, and that's
Yeah.
still a circus.
Yeah,
So
that's true. So how long were you in the service for?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
Mm. So you did your time. Did you ever get deployed?
Yeah. Went to a place called the Ego Garcia. I'm sure you've not heard of that.
Never.
It's a small island about 1,100 miles south of India, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. There was a squadron of B-1s there. I was a B-1 engine mechanic. Squadron of B-1s there and a squadron of KC-135 aerial refuelers, and we were bombing Iraq and Afghanistan out of there.
How long were you there?
90 days. That's the good thing about the Air Force. They do, the Army guys and poor guys, they were doing 12, 15, 18-month deployments, and I was there for a cool 90 days.
Wow. Oh, looking back on the Air Force now, what did it give you in a lot of
And it gave me a perspective and an education that I could not have got at any university or college.
yeah.
And I'm not knocking that because I've since gone to college, but just the things it taught me about people in general. I've met somebody from every state, a lot of different countries, worked alongside the British, the Australians. Yeah, just it taught me that not everybody's got good intentions.
Mhm.
And I told you about growing up in church. I accepted Christ as a young man, but I made some bad decisions in there, you know, and and it taught me that just you don't really know what you're capable of. You know, everybody says, "Oh, I wouldn't do things like that." Person don't know what they'll do until they're. The Bible tells us the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? So I learned that firsthand.
Yeah. I feel like most people do as life goes on.
Yeah,
Everybody says they're or aren't going to do something. They never know until you're put in that situation.
sure. But I had no regrets on going in the military. It was a really good experience, and it's given me, a veteran status that helped me later on in life. You know, now the VA pays me a whopping $175 a month because I can't hear. But
So, what was transition like coming out of the military back into civilian life?
and that was not. I know later on when we get into I'm gonna talk about mental health a little bit later on. We'll get more into it, but just on the surface right now, that was the hardest time of my life.
Bill?
Just going from having that sense of purpose, wearing that uniform, to just being done.
Yeah.
And I could have stayed, but I chose not to because I was talking to a guy uh, the other day that he joined the military about a year before me, and I saw him. He's like, "Hey, man, we'd be retired right now if we'd have stayed." I was like, "Dude, I'd been retired 5 years ago."
Yeah.
You know, and but you didn't realize, we was talking about how we got out because it was just too much bull crap, you know, and didn't realize that the vegan world just the same.
Yeah.
You just got to pick and choose your bull crap, what you can deal with.
Yeah. So, what did you do after military? Like, what was your job? Getting back into working and
Well, I went to school in Clarksville and got my degree in aviation maintenance technology, and I got my FAA airframe and power plant license that allows you to work on civilian aircraft. And I was hoping to do something in that line of work, but after 9/11, even 4 years, 3 or 4 years later, aviation was really in the tank. People your age probably don't remember a time when airlines weren't bankrupt. And so the school actually hired me after I graduated to teach the power plant, which is the engines, that portion. And I did that for a few months, and then I was fortunate enough to land a job at PDA. And June of 2005, I started at PDA.
so when you got TVA, would you search it? Were you trying to get TVA, or is it just kind of one of those blessing things that just kind of fell in your lap?
It just fell into my lap. It was right here at home. a very coveted job at the time, and still are coveted. They're just not as readily available, especially here. And I remember when I got hired on there, my mom said, "Oh man, you can keep that job forever. We'll always need electricity." And we still do need it, but they're just not,
Yeah.
you know, not using that place generated anymore.
Yeah, and it's have you been out there lately?
I went out there uh, 2 or 3 months ago to try to land a gig selling faster. Uh, yeah, it looked a lot different.
Yeah.
The land, you come across the bridge there in Ohio County. That used to be your welcome home.
Yeah.
On the WK, you look over there and see paradise, 4 smokestacks and 3 cooling towers, and all gone.
Yeah, it's nuts now. I live close to there, so I go ride them Peabody roads all the time, just when we're not doing nothing. And it's crazy seeing it now. So you went to your first fire school at TVA?
Yeah, yeah, and when was that? November of 2006. I was in operations, in the operations program. Whether you want to or not, you're on the fire brigade. And so went to Chattanooga to a fire school there, and it was neat. It was okay. Uh, I was 20. I guess I'd been 24. wasn't wasn't really my thing at the time. And then I came home, and the next month I started dating Ashley. So I was more interested in her than I was the fire service.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you went to your what all certifications did you get while you were working there in that fire brigade and everything?
I just well, of course, the fire brigade cert and hazmat tech. There was enough ammonia on site that they required us to also be hazmat tech, which I know a lot of people do not like hazmat. I I kind of geek out on it. It's something different, in the fire service. You're used to just going all out, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Hazmat kind of requires you to slow down, study what you got, see how you can mitigate the incident. I always say IDL8 stands for I do love hazmat, but I know a lot of people.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, most people do. And also I was on the confined space rescue team, so that's not my thing at all. A lot of people love it. I'll be your anchor guy, or I'll pull a rope, or I'll go get you something, but just don't ask me to set up your 3-to-1 rig with a, I don't know, Jelly Roll Alpine knot or whatever they are.
Yeah, we're fixing all of us to go get my place certified. We're all fixing to do that. You can hear me now? Oh, okay. Yeah, all of us are fixing to get confined space. So
It's important, and I'm glad there's guys that like it, and the guys that like it are the ones we ought to train in it,
yeah,
and they can be in charge of it, tell me what to do.
yeah. I would like to get all those certifications, all the technical rescue certifications. I'd like to get out every bit of that I can. So when we were talking earlier before this, you said that it wasn't the calls that shaped your mindset. It was how people treated those below them. What do you mean by that?
Well, when I first got into the professional fire service, I expected the job, I expected and the calls to be hard. I expected the training to be intense and to be serious, but I just didn't expect, trying to word this without kind of like I was just a little wimp and didn't want to take it. I just didn't expect the treatment from my fellow coworkers to be what it was.
Yeah,
Uh, I know it's a cliche saying that you may not remember what someone said or someone did, but you'll always remember how a person made you feel.
yeah,
And, I was uh, 29 or 30. I had held a good job. I had been around the world, served in the military. I mean, I spent 7 weeks with a 6'4" bag of muscles yelling at me every day. But that was his job. You know, 7 weeks down the road, I leave. He yells at somebody else.
yeah. That's still his job.
Yeah, I'm not going to work side by side with him 8 weeks from now. You know, so, and I knew there was a rite of passage. I expected to do the new guy stuff. I knew that I didn't know what the senior guys knew, but I expected more of a brotherhood than what I got at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm not on here to bash anybody or any department. And most of those guys that did that are probably gone now.
Yeah.
And I think that was, and I can see us trending the other way. And I don't think we ought to create soft people, but we ought to just treat others the way. I still remember how that was. 14 years later, I remember how I felt, and I just I didn't understand it. And I think some of that, like I said, is generational because I remember being at TVA and I had just come out of the training program out there and gone on. I think we called it shift. I can't remember, but anyway, I was an assistant unit operator, so I did everything out in the plant that the operator couldn't do from the control room,
Yeah.
keep the plant operational. And I was on unit 3 one evening, and the operator hollered at me on the radio, which the whole plant can hear. "Hey, Jared, open this valve," whatever it was. And I couldn't find it. I mean, you're talking about 15 floors worth of stuff and thousands of valves.
Oh, yeah.
And this is my first time. This was my first rodeo,
Yeah.
and couldn't find it. And I remember him getting on the radio and saying, "Speak, and ye shall find." And I'm like, "Oh boy, let's see how this is gonna go."
Yeah, here we go.
And then this fifth supervisor come up there, and this guy's like my dad's age. I'm 25 at the time. He's in his mid-50s, and he shows me where it's at, and I operate it, whatever I'm supposed to do. And after it was over with, he came over and stuck his finger in my chest and said, "Don't ever let that happen again." And I'm sitting there thinking, this is a dude like my dad's age.
Yeah.
My dad wouldn't do that to me,
Yeah.
you know. And he could have very easily just slapped me on the back. Said, "I bet you won't forget where that's at, buddy."
Yeah.
And then I would have been like, because I wasn't going to forget. I was already embarrassed.
Yeah.
The whole plant knew I couldn't find it. And at that point, I realized that, if I had an issue, I couldn't go to him.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be my quote unquote leader.
Mhm.
I know PVA is not a paramilitary, or they call fire service paramilitary. I don't know if it is or not, but you have rank structure, you have, certain things.
Yeah.
And, at that point I realized I couldn't go to him, and I felt like that when I first started in the fire service too, that some of the guys that were supposed to be leading me into dangerous situations, I didn't feel like I could approach them for anything.
Yeah.
And so I've carried that with me as I progress through fire service, through the ranks, of just how people ought to be treated.
Mhm. Yeah, nobody likes a bully.
No, and you know, you've heard the Jordan Peterson quote, "A harmless man is not a good man. A good man's a very dangerous man that has it under control."
Yes.
And you can be tough. You can
Mhm.
you know, be masculine. You can be manly.
Yeah.
This job requires that a lot of times.
Mhm.
But you can practice self-control
Yeah.
and teach people things they need to be taught. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't come out of mama's womb with a fire hose and a helmet knowing how to firefight.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know nothing.
No. But people took time with you, and people have taken time with me, and I'm not saying everybody I've had, in the beginning was not a good mentor. I had some good ones.
Mhm.
I've experienced good leadership, and I've experienced bad, and you can learn something from all of them.
Yeah.
If it's nothing other than, I don't wanna be like that.
Yeah. And it what makes a good fireman is good old firemen that take time with new ones.
Yeah, that's your job as an older fireman to make sure the young firemen become old firemen.
Yeah, exactly. And I forgot to say this in the beginning, but you're one of the first ones that ever showed me how to take a blood pressure. We had to call a guy choking. We get there, he wasn't choking, and you just straight up asked the guy, "Hey, man, can this guy check a blood pressure on you?" And you got out the manual and showed me how to do it right there.
Yeah, and so you say that, and that just simple as that goes to prove it doesn't have to be anything big to leave a positive impact on somebody.
Oh yeah, and here I am, what, 15 years later doing this, and I still remember it.
And I can tell just by the short interaction I had with some of your firefighters downstairs earlier, that they respect. You can tell a lot about a leader by how his people act around. You know?
Thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But I try to respect them too. Well, no, I do respect them too. Mutual thing,
Yeah.
we will all work good together, and I mean that's just the best way to do it. I love this quote. I seen it's don't see somebody else's strength as your weakness. You get different people who are the best at different things. Get them all on the same team,
Yeah.
and that's what I've tried to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Capitalize on people's strengths.
Yeah,
Yeah. Look at you, man. You're like 6'3", 300 pounds. Well, all muscle. We're talking, you're not 300 pounds,
yeah,
but you're a big old boy. If I need a door forced, I'm probably going to come to you.
yeah,
You know, to
yeah,
just know what you got on your team,
mhm,
use it, and you know, build a good team.
yeah, absolutely. It's funny you said that. Man, Logan Adams was going interior on this fire a couple weeks ago, and he was just eating a bar out of the store, and he's like, "I can't get it." I was like, "Well, here, watch out." I kicked it, knocked it plumb off the hinges.
I thought you was going to tell me you just turned the knob and it opened.
No, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
I have done that, especially on a car fire. Everybody will be wanting to force the door open or something. I'm like, "Man, try the handle."
Yeah. The reason they tell us pry before you pry.
Exactly. So, how early did you realize you didn't wanna be that guy? I'm guessing it was probably a TVA moment.
Yeah. I mean, it was just funny. Once I got out of training in the Air Force, nobody yelled at me. Nobody really talked down to me.
Yeah.
And that's a place you think you would see that. So I was just really taken back when people didn't, you know, eh, this sounds like I'm just a wimp, but I didn't expect it all to be rainbows and French toast.
Yeah.
I expected to do my new guy stuff, all that. And I also expected, hey, let's be buddies too.
Yeah.
I'm not here to, I don't take a job to make friends, but if I make friends along the way, it makes life easier.
Yeah.
And for a man to have friends, he's got to present himself friendly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, day one, man. Day one is when I learned I don't want to be like that.
Mhm. And there's a big difference, I think, in ball busting and bullying,
Just,
because I'll give you down the road, but if somebody else is being mean to you, I'm the first one to be like, "Hey, man, don't talk to him like that."
yeah, there's a difference in laughing with somebody than laughing at them.
Yeah.
We've all know guys that we work with that got nicknames because of something silly they've done.
Yeah.
It's funny. As long as nobody gets hurt and you know, the the nickname or the ridicule or whatever is all in good fun,
Mhm.
then it's fun.
Yeah.
But when it becomes beyond that is when it's damage.
Yeah. And I like how you told me, before the how, you call some guy Big Dummy,
Yeah,
and that if he ever
yeah. There's a guy I work with on Madisonville. He's built out like you, maybe even a little bit bigger. And I call him Big Dummy, and it's all in good fun. Just because he's big is why I do it. But if he came up to me tomorrow at work and said, "Hey, man, I don't like that," I'd apologize and I'd never speak those words again.
Yeah.
You know, but he's a good guy and he just goes along with it. Knows it's in fun. But yeah, it's you just you got to read the room sometimes too.
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't understand how people just like the boss was at TVA, 'cause I'm sure somebody probably did that to him, but I don't understand how, like how you said, it made me feel that way, so I knew I was never gonna do like that.
Right.
I don't understand how everybody's not like that, 'cause I'm the same way. If somebody made me feel a certain way, I make sure I'll never be that guy.
Well, I think sometimes people like that could have very easily put a chip on my shoulder, and I carried that on to the next guy as soon as I got the chance.
Yeah.
But I think it's our duty to remember how, like, remember how we felt when it happened to us, and just not do it to the next person.
Yeah. So you've held multiple ranks. You started as firefighter, now you're a lieutenant.
Yep.
So how do you try to treat the newest guy on day one?
The way I want to be treated. Uh, that sounds, that's pretty cut and dry, but I can remember how it was on day one,
Mhm.
walking into a room full of 20 guys that were hardened by the job, who have been doing it a while, who are, you know, some of them are rough, some of them are tough, some of them were stoic,
Mhm.
some of them aren't, and you're intimidated, you know, and you're, to be quite honest, scared. I was,
Oh, really?
or at least nervous.
Oh, dude, I was scared to death.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, and you want to make a good impression, but
Mm.
you also don't want to come in there acting like you know everything, because that's the worst impression you can make.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, like I try to treat them. I always introduce myself. ask them a little bit about themselves, what they'll tell me. These young guys now, they don't want to talk. Maybe if I send them a text message, do worse you got to do. But
Snapchat them.
yeah, yeah, just make them feel welcome. But also, when you're new, my expectations are high. You know that that's the point in your career that you ought to be trying the hardest.
Oh yeah, nobody should ever outwork you.
No, you know, when you see something needs to be done, do it. I shouldn't have to ask you to do certain things, and especially while you're in training. But and in training, the academy or you have on shift training or whatever, or in house academy or whatever it may be. That's not really all that fun for 10 to 12 weeks. I mean, it's a lot of hard work.
No.
The fun comes afterwards. I mean, I've complained about this job, and there's nothing else I want to do.
Oh yeah, there's nothing else no, nothing.
Yeah. So after that training's over with, that's when the fun starts. You get to ride backward, you know, enjoy that, I guess, that lack of responsibility as a fireman, just back there waiting on somebody to tell you what to do,
Yeah.
doing the fun stuff.
So when did you marry Ashley? What year was it?
2007.
So you were working at TVA when y'all were married?
Yeah. When we got married, I was already working there.
So I guess she kinda experienced the job with you as you were finding your footing in it.
Yeah. It sounds kind of funny now, but coming home from six-figure job one day saying, "Hey, Ash, I think it's time I become a fireman."
Yeah.
It, but she took it really well.
Yeah.
Ashley was raised, devout Southern Baptist, daughter of a pastor, and was always taught just trust God, He'll provide.
Yeah.
There's not too many women out there you can say, "Hey, I'm ready to take a 60% pay cut and deal with it."
Yeah.
Or not deal with it, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
You know,
People are like, "Oh, Lord."
but yeah, no, we learned real quick though. It's not what you make, it's what you spend.
Yeah.
And so I can't brag on her enough. But yes, he's experienced, going through paramedic school. He's experienced the ups and downs of the calls, the holidays away, long nights by herself, all that stuff. And I can say this: I've seen guys have to sit in the fire station, stare out the bay door, sitting on the bumper of a pumper, and wonder what their wives are up to while they're gone. I've never had to do that.
Yeah. That's something can't put a price tag on something
No,
like that.
and the Bible tells us, beauty is fading, charm can be deceitful, but a woman who fears the Lord to be praised.
Yeah. And not a lot of people get that. You know, that and a lot of guys don't understand that either until they do have something like that.
Yeah.
So you guys don't have any kids, but I know you're very active with your nieces, nephews.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was a conscious decision for us not to have children. I don't know why, man, but ever since I was a kid, I'm like, I just don't want kids. I don't.
Yeah.
And Ashley knew that. I told her that before we got married because I didn't want her to go into a marriage thinking, oh, he'll change his mind in a year, you know. But no, we don't. We chose not to have any, but we do enjoy our time with our nieces and nephews. And now we got two great nieces. My sister, she had two girls. The oldest passed away just a little over a year ago, and but her other daughter worked at Disney World, so I've had to go down there a couple times this year.
Really
Oh yeah, happiest place on earth, and
most expensive place on earth.
man, it is yeah. You can spend some money quick there.
Yeah.
But and Ashley's sister has their stair step, two girls and a boy. The boy's in the middle, 13, 15, 17, and I really enjoy spending time with them now they're older.
Oh yeah.
When they were little, that got on my nerves. I'm not cut out for small children,
Oh yeah.
but uh, yeah. So I remember in 2011, I asked Ashley, I said, you know what, we ought to take these kids on one trip when they're old enough to not get homesick and old enough to appreciate it. And so we started in 2011 with my oldest niece, Ashlyn, and and we're finishing up this year the youngest one. So yeah, I'm glad we got to do that. That's memories that we'll always have. And I didn't have that with my aunts and uncles, but my aunts and uncles had children of their own.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't expect them to say, "Hey, let me borrow one of these kids and
Yeah.
take them on a trip." So, but yeah, it's and family's important to us. Our parents, they're thankfully all still alive, all still live close. We're I think when people see that you don't have children, they think you don't like people or like kids,
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
and that's not the case for us.
Yeah.
We just chose to invest in other people's children
Yeah.
and to enjoy that and enjoy our time together. But with that, uh, since we don't have any, Ashley's had to spend a lot of time by herself,
Mhm.
because of this job,
Yeah.
24, 48-hour shifts, whatever it may be. And spend a lot of holidays and weekends, birthdays, anniversaries, all that stuff alone. But she's rolled with it. She's done well. She's never made me feel guilty about going to work. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Oh, yeah, you can't. Yeah, just like you can't put a price tag on that either.
Now,
So she's kinda grew with you as you moved into the positions that you've been in. So how important is it to have someone who understands the weight you bring home after them hard calls?
really important. You know, I don't tell her everything because there's some things we carry that I don't want other people to have to carry that don't see it.
Yeah.
But she's always, and when I did start struggling with my mental health from the fire service, she was the first one to tell me you need to do something. And I know we'll get into that more later. But I'm thankful that you know he never once looked down on me for that.
Mhm.
Never never looked at me as weak
Yeah.
or anything like that. But just he's my biggest critic in a good way.
Yeah.
But she's also my biggest supporter.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a big misconception that a lot of I mean, most people that do this job and get in it and make a career out of it are usually type A people, and I think that's a big, I don't even know the right word, stigma maybe, is appearing weak, especially to your family. So you're drowned and you never even say anything to anybody.
Well, the Bible verse, "Wives, submit to your husbands." A lot of people see that as condescending or as oppressive. But what they don't read is, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church."
Yeah.
I have, I failed, and I have failed Ashley so many times.
Mhm.
But I,
No, no, man.
that I do believe. I don't believe it. I've lived it. That if you love them the way you're supposed to, man, they'll march to the gates of hell with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I told myself I wouldn't get emotional during this, but it's just not in me. I do it.
No, it's good. We all do it. I tell you what, a good woman will do that to you.
Oh yeah.
Mine ain't. Ashley sounds just like Katie. I mean, she's the same exact way. Whenever I wanted to make the change over to this career path, I was making $10 an hour working at the street department. We had hardly had no money, and I told her I had to go take the CPAT before I could get the job. And she said, "Well, let's go take it." I was like, "Well, we'll save for a week or so. We'll put $100 back this week, then $100, and then I'll go take it." She was like, "No, we'll just go take it." I was like, "But, if I fail, we just burn that money." She's like, "Well, then you can take it again." I was like, "Okay." So she drove me up there, gave me a pep talk the whole way, smacked me on the hind end on the way in, said, "Bit past this thing, and
Go get it, big boy.
yep. And I came out with it, and I was hired a week later.
Yeah, God gives you the desires of your heart,
Mhm.
and that's one thing we did learn is that God's will and happiness and contentment, it don't always come with a pay raise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it does, and
Yeah.
that's nice. But I've also learned that, especially this past year of my life, that being rich is having money, being wealthy is having time.
Yes.
So,
That is so.
yeah. But not to change subject or shift gears, but you sat at the station and you've listened to guys talk down about their wives. And I've just not ever got into that. Sometimes I'll say something like, "Oh, Ashley wants another $8 coffee when I get off in the morning," or, something,
Yeah, I do the same
you know.
thing.
But that's the worst I can say,
Yeah.
you know. And I've witnessed guys just not know what they have,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's what always happens. If you ever notice, they're miserable until they finally pull the trigger on that, and then they're like, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
And that's the truth. That song. What was that song you were telling me about?
Oh, the Escape by Rupert Holmes.
Yeah.
Most people don't know it by the name. You like pina coladas and get caught in the rain.
Yeah.
And the premise of the song, it came out, I think, the late 70s. Premise of the song was this guy, he was says in the lyrics, "I was bored with my lady."
Mhm.
And so he put out a want ad in the newspaper because that's what you had to do back then. Could you imagine that now? People we stand at the microwave and yell, "Hurry up." But back then, that's how you did it. So he put in this one ad. This lady replied to it. The one ad was, those silly lyrics, "Get caught in the rain" and all that. This lady replied to it, and so he went to a bar or something and met her. And he said when she walked in, he recognized the curve of her face, and it was his wife, girlfriend, whatever she was.
Yeah.
And so he had what he wanted the entire time. He just and he said when he saw her, he said, "I never knew you liked pina coladas and get caught in the rain." So he had what he wanted. They didn't communicate. He didn't appreciate what they had. That's it's not a spiritual song or a scriptural song. It's a very secular song that we think of when most people think of it as a beat song or a Chris song or whatever, but it's got a pretty deep meaning.
Yeah. And that's how most relationships are really. And unfortunately, this job comes with a really high divorce rate. I mean, if you're lucky enough to, like you said, communicate, that's the thing. So we'll shift gears a little bit. You were so you started Madisonville in 2016.
Yeah.
You've served as a firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, and instructor.
Yeah.
So how did teaching others change how you saw fire service and how it operated?
And I think teaching is one of the biggest privileges and responsibilities you can have.
Yeah.
And I know we all kind of get burnt out with it from time to time because, especially in the professional fire service, you're required to get so many hours every year, and everybody's like, "Oh, training again."
Yeah.
But I enjoy teaching. Not that all my classes set the world on fire. I know they're not all great. And I tell the guys at the beginning of the class, you you're welcome to use the whole seat, but they'll probably only need the edge. You know.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really great privilege and opportunity, like I said. But you know, so I tell wasn't very long ago. I stood up in front of all 20 people on my shift. That's not easy to do. And but and I asked them to think back to their first house fire if they could remember it, and then think back to the most recent one. And I asked them which one went better, and everybody was like, "Well, the most recent one." And I'm like, "Why is that?" And I could ask you the same question, you would tell me the same answer because of experience. And I can't teach experience. I can teach, you know, I can teach you some knowledge, but experience is the knowledge we wish we had 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I like to say that. So I have found that keeping it simple, building on your fundamentals over and over and over, that's what, like, there's no such, the beauty of this job is its simplicity.
Yeah.
99% of my problems go away when I get water on the fire.
Yeah.
But I also need to know how to put on my gear. I need to know how to pull a hose off the truck. I need to know how to port the door. I need to know all those things, and that's what we need to practice. And the older you get in the fire service, it seems like you're always looking for something new. But outside of some new gear here and there, some new tech, or, maybe the Tesla and the electric car stuff. Not much has changed.
No.
This is just my opinion. You know, I don't think there's any such thing as advanced firefighting.
Yeah.
It, it's just firefighting.
Yeah. Just firefighting. You get you master the basics.
Yes. And so I think sticking to those basics. I remember when I first got my paramedic, I was working PRN up here in the county, and Troy Walker sat me down, and he was going over paperwork and telling me I'm now a paramedic, not EMT, whatever. And he's like, "I'm gonna tell you this." He's like, "You will not get sued unless you're just grossly negligent over your ALS stuff, your advanced life support stuff." He said, "Where you get sued is for getting your basic life support stuff.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get sued over missing an IV, but you are gonna get sued over missing this guy don't have a pulse,
Yeah.
basic stuff."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but also, we can get a little bit on leadership if you want to, and I'm not claiming to be a great leader. I don't claim that at all. I just every day on the way to work, I just pray that I treat people the way I want to be treated, and I think that's a big part of it. But on the training ground, we've all been there where we've kind of got those guys that this is their chance to get that gotcha moment.
Yeah.
You know, I I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the greatest rescue unit from FDNY. If I'm setting up the evolution, I could set you up to fail
Oh, yeah.
by just throwing something stupid in
Mhm.
that nobody learns from, and everybody's just mad because you did that thing.
Yeah.
Or if I'm teaching a class in the class, I could look at a book 15 minutes before class, memorize some gee whiz information,
Mhm.
and stump. But what's that do? It
Yeah.
just belittles people, turns them off from training.
Mhm.
And I've been in classes before, and where the instructor, he's this is how he gets his rocks off of making you feel dumb. And so what do? You don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Time to do an evolution, you might flip to the back, see if you can get out of it. I've done that.
Mhm.
Not because I didn't think I could do it, but just because I knew what was coming,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to deal with the ridicule and the confrontation.
Yeah.
So something was left on the table there in that training evolution that I didn't practice or perfect or want to do because I was just like, this guy's just a bully. I don't want to deal with it. And so if you don't fail, I mean, fail in a good way on the training ground, learn something.
Mhm.
If you don't fail on the training ground, where does that mean you're going to fail?
Yeah, you can feel it when it matters.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
you're going to fail on the fire ground or on the medical scene or whatever it may be. And that's going to put someone's life or safety in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So I believe that, that leadership and all of that, treating how you want to be treated and all that stuff, it's full circle. Comes back around there, it comes back to patient life. And you care if I get on my soapbox for a minute?
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
I was about the soapbox.
So I know we were talking one time before. You asked me uh, what I thought was the biggest detriments, the biggest problems was in the fire service.
Mhm.
And I think it's for several things, but I think the lack of ownership is the big one.
Yeah.
Uh, I am a company officer. I'm in charge, and I look at these guys as my equals. But when the crap hits the fan, I am in charge, and I have on my crew. I'm at a substation, so I'm the lieutenant there. I'm in charge, and there's a engineer, and there's usually 2 firefighters, sometimes just
Yeah.
my truck. And unless they just do something really crazy, I'm in charge. I have to take the heat. If something goes wrong.
Mhm.
You know, you I can't just always bask in the glory when things go right, and when the things aren't good,
Blame it on somebody else.
blame it on somebody. Who's in charge of those guys' training?
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah. Whether they're good or bad, they're mine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that you always praise in public. If you're down here and you're my firefighter and you do something great, I'm going to praise you in front of everybody.
Mhm.
But if you do something wrong, I need to correct you in private.
Yeah.
And I also need to own it that it might be my fault.
Yeah.
It happened. I'll tell you the story about uh, back in December, we had a house fire in Madisonville, and I was the first truck on scene. The engineer was doing his thing, getting water supply. Firefighter pulled the pre-connect. I walked up to the house. There was a big fence around it, so I couldn't do a full 360. I've learned not to go through fences,
Yeah.
unless you know for certain there's not a butt chewing Rottweiler back there. But,
Absolutely.
so I'm standing there reading the smoke, get tightening up my buckles and all that stuff. And I realize I don't have my tip, my thermal imaging camera.
Yeah.
Well, we had 2 guys that were in training at the time, and sometimes, you know, by this point, command staff vehicle had already showed up. And sometimes those new guys will come with them just so they can stand around and watch,
Yeah.
uh, do some things like pull hose or whatever, but it's a training for them.
Yeah.
So I turn around, and one of those new guys is standing there for me to you from me. I'm like, "Hey, man, will you go get my tick out of the truck?" I forgot it. He goes, and he comes back, and he does not bring me a tick. I don't remember what he brought me, but it wasn't a tick. And he's new.
Yeah.
First off, whose fault is it that they got off the truck without the tick?
Yeah.
That's me.
Yours. Yeah.
That's my fault. Just the basic of things, but it slipped my mind. It was laying in the seat. I grabbed it, put it in the seat to tighten up my belt, and I left it. So what I do? I said, "Oh, this ain't a tick. I'll go grab it." Took like 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Was not detrimental to the scene or anything like that. What I didn't do is belittle him.
Mhm.
And, because 6 months, a year down the road, he may be my firefighter.
Yeah.
And if I would have belittled him over something that really, at that point in his career, he probably didn't really know yet, didn't know, I could set the tone for the next however long I'm there and he's with me. He will always think, well, I remember that guy was a jerk.
Yeah.
Nobody had ever told me what a tick was. This guy telling me to go get it, and I got the wrong thing, and he's making fun of me.
Yeah.
So it's just little things like that that, once again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I remember what it was like.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like a lot of guys have short memories.
Mhm. Yeah, I can remember. I won't mention no names, but I can remember getting my butt chewed out because I don't know, we was on a fire scene and they told me to get something, and I didn't really hear them, but I thought I knew what he wanted. So I went around there and I realized I didn't know what he wanted. So I like hollered across the truck and was like, "Hey, what did you tell me to get?" And my God, he chewed me up one side and down the other. You listen when I'm talking. You worse than time. Yada yada yada.
Made him feel good, didn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I still remember that.
And there's other things that I could harp on, like a lack of consistency. We've all had the boss that however their morning went was how your day was going to go.
Oh yeah.
It's not my job to come in here and skirt around your mood.
Mhm.
And we all have bad days here and there. But, I don't want to work for Jekyll and Hyde and have to figure out, oh, am I going to have to tiptoe today because Caleb, you know,
Mhm.
his wife didn't make his lunch or whatever, just
Yeah.
little things. And also, some of that consistency is because we've all experienced people that sometimes they'll teach a class and it'll be like a cut up session for the first half. And then the second half, they want to run it like a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that don't work.
No, you can't do that.
No.
You set the tone at the beginning.
Yeah. We've all, and I think another big thing is being cool under pressure.
Mhm.
That is our job. I, I remember when the North End Burger King burnt in Addisonville about 3 years ago. I was the first truck in, got there, smoke showing, all that good stuff. So I get on the radio and give my scene size up so the incoming units know what's going on. We get out, do our thing. Whenever it's over with, we were all standing around kind of talking about what went on. And my captain at the time, he came up to me and he said, "Man," he said, "I didn't even think this place was on fire. You were so calm on the radio." And I'm like, "That's my job, brother."
Yeah.
That's what I take all these classes and I train, or we train. We practice these scene size up so when I get on the radio, I don't sound like a idiot
Mhm.
and set the whole tone for everybody else coming in.
Yeah.
I said it, you've probably heard this before, but it's kind of like when the garbage man tops the hill and he sees trash in the dumpster. He don't lose his mind.
I
Starts
love that.
screaming.
I love that.
It's your job. But yeah, just little things like that, and having courage not only to do the job. We all want to go on a house fire. That doesn't take any courage. I mean, it does, but that's what you want to do. What takes courage is standing up for what's right
Yeah.
and being there for your guys, standing up for what you believe in, looking out for the little guy, that kind of thing. It's just, those things go, in my opinion, go so far
Mhm.
with people, because it doesn't matter where you're at in life. People are people,
Mhm.
and they just all want to be treated with respect and with dignity, and this job to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's not always a good time, but for the most part,
Yeah, for the most
it's
we try to make a good time out of whatever,
yeah.
you know?
I just know that the Bible tells us a brother offended is harder to win than a strong city. And I just don't, and I know people will listen to this and think, Jared said this before, Jared's done this. And there's been plenty of times where I have popped off or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but you're human.
Yeah. And there's times where I haven't popped off. You know, the wrath of man's not the righteousness of God.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to step back. And in those situations that I felt like I've done good. I may have not got my words in. I may not have felt like I quote unquote won the argument or won the situation, but I think that's a victory. Sometimes just stepping back, keeping your mouth shut,
Yeah.
which is hard.
Yeah. Some days it is.
Okay, I'm stepping off my soapbox now. I appreciate you letting me rant there.
Oh, no, you're good. I like it. I'm always down to talk. What's wrong with our service?
But for everything that's wrong with it, there's a lot of good things. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't want anybody to think I don't. It's provided me a good living, and I enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I when I'm off for an extended period of time, I'm ready to come back to work. I do that.
You serious?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the guys now they're on 48.96s. So about their third day, they'll come in there and say, "Man, I was ready to come back after that third day."
Oh, I forget. Y'all do the 48.96 here, don't
Mhm.
you? Yeah, I know. I've seen a lot of departments going to that.
Yeah, I mean, the guys love it. I don't get to do it, but they love it.
Hmm. I don't know. I know I would like those 4 days because we work the California schedule
Mhm.
where you work 3 out of 5 days, then you're off 4.
Yeah, that's what we did before we went to this.
Okay. And that 4 days, man, I think it's helped.
Oh, absolutely.
Get time to little decompress a little bit,
Mhm.
you know, and plus you can go on a little weekend trip with the wife or something without having to take vacation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what when we were doing that because I let the guys pretty much pick what they want to do. If they want to work 5/8s, y'all figure out the schedule and if we can do it. I try to let them do what they want. It's just tough job some days. If I can do something to make it better, I want to.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way I see it. So, to our ghost story, you have any unexplainable moment, anything that's made you get the heebie-jeebies?
I've, uh, I've heard this segment before on your podcast. I was trying to think, and I really don't have just what you call a ghost story. Now I have been, you talk about buildings you've gone in or whatever that felt creepy. And when I was working in Hopkinsville, we frequented Western State.
Mhm.
Have you ever been in there?
Oh yeah, one time.
One time.
That was enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that place, when you walk in there and that guard shuts the first door behind you and you step in the corridor and he gets some big skeleton keys out and opens that other door. It was when I went in there at 2 o'clock in the morning and everybody was sitting in the hallway rocking that I knew it was people had serious problems.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in mental health problems, but I'm also a firm believer that we sometimes try to classify demonic possession as mental health.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I just think, I don't dabble in the occult. I don't like that stuff. I don't do scary movies. Or my wife was laughing at me over the summer. We were at uh, oh, Universal Studios. We walked into Harry Potter World, and some kid in there had some kind of stick. He was casting a spell on a dragon. The dragon spit fire, and I said, "I'm done. I'm out of here." They were laughing at me. But I just I think there's a lot of that goes on, and we don't we don't realize what it is. And but I do have I was thinking about it. And I do have a call one time where I was scared. I was legitimately scared, and it wasn't because I was any physical danger, but we got called to a house that was way out in the county, and I was on an ambulance. I don't recall the nature of the call, what was going on. But I know when we walked into the house, there was what I would call Satan's symphony music playing so loud you couldn't think, drug and alcohol paraphernalia everywhere, people screaming. And I don't remember what was going on, but we got this woman in the ambulance, and I was sitting on the side bench. That's just what I did. I felt like that provided a better level of care than just
Yeah.
riding behind them. It allows you to talk to people, and they can talk to you, and I think it gives them a better sense of comfort. Anyway, I was sitting there, and she looked over at me. She wasn't much older than me, probably at the time, and she said, "You're cute." And she didn't say it in like a flattery way.
Yeah.
She said it in a way like, "I want to eat your soul,"
Yeah.
and it scared me so bad that I got up and I went and sat in the captain's chair behind her. I didn't talk to her the rest of the way.
Yeah, no, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm getting up front. You're right."
Yeah, so and I would look up in the back glass. It was nighttime, and I could see her reflection in the back glass, and she's staring at me, and it was just scary. I don't, you know,
Yeah, I don't like
yeah, no, I don't. It just gave me chills, and I mean, sounds silly that was my scariest moment in a 14-year fire service career, but I mean, I'm always scared when I go on a house fire, or not, maybe not scared, but have a healthy respect,
Yeah.
and I didn't expect to be scared like that on a ambulance call. But I think with this job, as much death as we see, you've seen it where people have reached toward heaven or
Mhm.
smiled or waved or, have a pleasant look on their face when they die, or unfortunately, sometimes not so pleasant. That if death is black and life is white, that gray area in between gets really thin.
Yeah.
And I know David said there is but a step between me and death.
Yeah.
So it's, I've seen babies be born, and I've seen people die. I've seen it at the beginning and at the end.
Mhm.
And it's really, I don't have a way to explain it other than it's really, struggling for words here. I don't want to say a blessing to see them both, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives you a healthy respect of both.
Yeah.
Way more than just thinking about it or
Yeah.
seeing it in a movie, you know?
And it's, to remind you how short life can be.
Mhm.
You've never rolled up on a wreck and someone say, "Man, that happened in slow motion." They always say, "It happened so fast."
Mhm.
Any kind of accident, "That happened so fast." And we all say, "Well, I could die today. I could die today." We don't truly believe it.
Mhm.
If we did, we'd live a lot different.
Yeah.
I mean, I consider and say, "Well, I could get killed in my car on the way home after this interview, but I really don't think it'll happen. Or if I did, I wouldn't be spending my last hour on earth with you."
Yeah.
No offense, but you wouldn't be spending yours with me.
Yeah, no.
And so we see a lot of death, see a lot of things that we can't explain. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we get numb to it.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you this story, I'm going to be very vague, protect, protect privacy.
Mhm.
I was on an ambulance, and I got called to a code blue for someone that was fairly young. You know, And to get there, and their spouse is standing on the front porch with a child who looked like they were probably 8, 10 years old, somewhere around there. And I went in the back where the person was, and they had been down, not in a tremendous amount of time, but long enough I knew uh, resuscitative efforts would be futile, and they met all the criteria for determination of death. So I called it. went back out into the living room. Spouse was there, and the child was there, and a Kentucky State Trooper was standing there. And the spouse said, "Are they okay?" And it was like they asked me, "Hey, what time is it?" I was just very nonchalant, no no empathy at all. It was like I just said, "It's 11:30." I said, "No, they're gone." And man, like, of course, they broke down, and I thought, "Eric, what's wrong with you? You have lost your humanity. You've lost your compassion." Even that state trooper reached over and hugged the spouse, took the kid around his arm or inside his arm and showed them compassion that I didn't. Still, and Jesus calls on us to show others compassion. So it was at that point in my career where I was like, I've got to do some soul searching. I, I didn't want, the job that I knew the job was changing me, but at that point, I reckon.
Yeah.
And I had just the way I looked at people, the way I looked at life, the way I looked at death, the way I looked on my fellow man with compassion had changed. And I knew I stopped riding the ambulance shortly after that because I was doing it a lot. I spent the first few years doing it as my primary job almost all the time at Hopkinsville. Some days I'd be on the fire truck. Then I was also doing it on my days off as my side job. I was like, this is too much. So I just recognized it. We carry guilt for certain things that we should. Guilt is something you should feel when you actually do something wrong. A lot of these calls we go on, we don't do anything wrong, and we carry that guilt, and we should. But I still carry guilt over that.
Yeah.
And I felt, excuse me, I felt like I should. And I don't live with a lot of regret, but I do regret how I treated those folks.
Yeah, I think that happens before you even realize it happens. I think, like you said, you notice that small things are changing, but then something big happens. You're like, what in the world is wrong with me? And I think it happens before people even realize that it's changing them. So, talking about that and changing, I guess I want to talk a little bit about mental health. I'm pretty big on if somebody needs to talk, they can talk. So, I know you were saying that after you left the military, it's one of the hardest times of your life. So, what did that struggle look like day to day?
I'm going to try to get through this without being emotional. And I'm not telling this story for shock value or for people to have sympathy for me or anything like that. I'm going to share this because I know there might be somebody else out there struck.
Yeah.
And before this podcast comes out, I'll have to tell my family about this because I've not shared this with hardly anybody.
Yeah.
But so I told you I got out of the military in April of 2004.
Mhm.
In March of 2004 is when I came home from my deployment. And my supervisor came up to me and he said, "Hey, I got a slot next month or end of this month, whatever it was." He said, "You can go to Iraq, do TCN duty, which is Third Country National, where you are, I mean, you're not kicking down doors or anything real kinetic, but you are babysitting, call it babysitting, some of the third country folks, the contractors. They're on post or base or right outside of base." And the reason it was offered to me was because I was up for reenlistment. You go overseas, somewhere like in a war zone, all your reenlistment bonus is tax free. So I didn't want to go. I said, no, thank you. And nobody pressured me to go. They're like, okay. There's another guy in my shop that he wanted to go. So they sent him. Now fast forward, I'm, you know, mid April, late April, I'm back home. Yeah, late April, early May, I guess it was. I'm back home. I had gotten out of the Air Force, and my mom and stepdad were gracious enough to let me reclaim my childhood bedroom. So I go from, like I said earlier, wearing the uniform of the United States every day, surrounded by people my age, had a purpose, had things to do, to back sitting in my childhood bedroom and all my friends from here had moved on. Uh, and when you come home on leave, everybody wants to take you out to eat, or you go see them, they come see you and make a big deal about it. But when you're home for good, you're just kind of a fixture, and that lasts for about a day and a half.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, fun. That weighed on me very heavily. And then one day, I had called a buddy of mine that was still stationed in South Dakota and was talking to him, and he said, "Hey, did you hear about so and so?" And he named the guy that went to Iraq. And I was like, "No." And he told me that he had got blown up. IEDs were big then, and he didn't die, but he was messed up enough that he got a Purple Heart. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what all happened to him because I didn't look into it. I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
But I took that on myself. I took all that guilt on myself. Uh, I felt like my whole enlistment was a fraud. Like it meant nothing. Like serving during 9/11 and 2 wars and all that stuff was just washed away because I should have been the one that got blown up, not him.
Yeah.
I didn't draft dodge. I didn't do anything wrong. That guy didn't go kicking and screaming. He seized an opportunity. I declined. He wanted that. He wanted to go anyway. So that was very difficult, very hard pill to swallow for me. And I remember before I got out of the Air Force, I had bought a Glock 22 model 40 caliber handgun. The cop carried it. I thought it was cool. And I remember sitting there on my childhood bed. Nobody else was home. And I wanted so bad to pick up that gun and it to all be over. And I just couldn't make myself do it. And looking back now, I think the main reason I couldn't do it was I knew my mom would fine.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
Mhm.
Their house, they got to live in that. I'm their son. Nobody wants to lose a child, much less find them.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I couldn't do it for the rest of my family that was still around. And I thought, well, maybe I can drive out somewhere. And I just didn't have the guts to do it.
Mhm.
But I wanted to so bad. And I just want people to know that having thoughts like that, it's not okay, but sometimes it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And I look back on that town. I'll be 44 in April. So I was 22 at the time. I've lived twice as long now than I would have had I done that. I think about I would have never met my wife, her family. I would have never got, got to work at TVA or do this job or travel all the places we got or just live life. Like 22 years of my life is half of it at this point.
Yeah.
And I almost ended it because I took on guilt that wasn't mine to bear. And I was just having a hard time. So I'm so thankful now that I didn't. And man, I have bought and sold so much crap over the last 22 years to just different stuff. But I have always kept that gun. And I keep it by my bedside to remind me life is good, things get better.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful I didn't let Satan win.
Yeah.
He's the one that puts those thoughts in our head.
Mhm.
Had I done that, that was a victory for him.
Yeah.
Another, not only would it have destroyed my life, but it would have destroyed all my family's life. And all these things I've gotten to do since then wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing too now because I feel like I don't know why I feel like suicide's more common now than it used to be. Do you feel that way? Like more people do it now than
I don't know if it's that or if we hear it more.
maybe that's what it is.
I, I don't know. I think it's more common. It might be more common now because you're seeing the effects of 22-year war
Yeah.
or a 20-year war at least. You're seeing pressures that we used to not have, influence, used to, kind of like what we was talking about earlier. You did something stupid on, you know, Friday night at McDonald's, and I was 17. Nobody found out about it.
You know,
Now there's so many avenues out there now to make somebody feel foolish,
you know,
make them feel like they're less of a person. Or you see things, you see a highlight reel on Facebook and think, man, that person's got it going on, and I stuck.
yeah.
Think maybe that's got more to do.
Yeah, I feel like that is probably a big thing.
I don't know, but at the time I was just having a hard time. And that would have been a permanent solution to temporary hard time.
What would you say to the firefighter or medic that's gonna be listening to this who's silently drowning right now?
To reach out. This job is this job, EMS, even law enforcement, most of the time doesn't operate on their own. I know there's times when they do, but you don't have to take this on by yourself. There's so many avenues now for help. Uh, Fast forward to just a few years ago, I had fallen back into some, if we call it depression or anxiety or just the mental health stuff from the fire service. I'd been in the fire service 10, 11 years at the time, and the Bible tells us pride comes before the fall. I'd always prided myself or been proud that I could go out, work the worst of tragedy, come back, write a report, trip stopper, make a couple jokes about it, and then go on. And then one day, and I don't think it was any particular call. It just I just started struggling. I was, you know, crying for no reason, losing sleep, couldn't sleep. My doctor put me on trazodone. Man, that stuff you could land a helicopter on my roof and I wouldn't wake up. I can't take that stuff. Uh, just I remember having dreams. I remember one dream I had. Uh, I dreamed that my dad and I were out hiking. We'd never been hiking, but we were out hiking and he fell off this cliff. And I remember looking over at the bottom, and I had worked the previous call a couple of years earlier where someone fell off a really high. They had a fall from a really high height. He looked just like they
Yeah.
had another dream where I dreamed I was cleaning a gun. For some reason, I was cleaning that loaded, and dreams are silly. But Ashley had walked in the dream, startled me, and I pulled the trigger and shot her. And her wound looked just like another tube tap.
Yeah.
Like things like this aren't normal. It's time to, that's how I knew it was time to seek help. Other than just the feelings of doom and gloom. Uh, so told Ashley about it. Like I said, she's always supported me. She's like, you need to go talk to dad. Her dad was our pastor. So I did. And thankfully he had enough wisdom to say, this isn't a spiritual matter. This is a matter of your mental health. And he referred me to a therapist.
Mhm.
Yeah. I see a faith-based therapist. Uh, that's, that's what I enjoy. That's what I feel best aligned for me. But any therapist can help. And I hear first responders say sometimes, well, I'm not going to go see a therapist. They don't know what it's like to do this job. And that may be true. They may not know what it's like to do this job. I don't know what it's like to have a heart attack, but I can treat one.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to have my home burned down, but I can put one out.
Yeah.
So these people are trained to help.
That's really good.
And a lot of times we put up walls
Mhm.
that, if you're trying to justify why you don't need help, probably.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, so I started seeing a therapist and he, faith-based, a lot of scripture, but also a lot of things backed by science. And I think it's important to, as Christians, we and people, we understand those two things can coexist. The Bible backs science and the science backs the Bible, and it's okay that those two coexist. And he, one of the scriptures that I hang on to that actually I've got a home gym, and in there I got a whiteboard, and I've got it written on that whiteboard, and I write it down in my journal every day, is to take every thought into captivity for the obedience of Christ. And I think that scripture is so important because every battle starts between your two ears, right there in the head. Whether that battle's temptation, whether it's guilt, whether it's shame, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, no matter what it is, it starts between your two ears and your brain. And you've got to take those thoughts into captivity. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was talking, he quoted that verse, and he said, the way I look at it, he said, I got a swimming pool. And every once in a while, when the leaves start falling, I'll get leaves in that pool. He said, but I can get in there and pitch them out. He said, I can't help that the leaves get in there. He said, but I can get them out.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that you're not less of a man or a woman. That God doesn't love you any less. That emotion.
Yeah.
You think back to when Mary and Martha, when Lazarus died, Jesus showed up 4 days later. Said if you'd have been here, he wouldn't have died. But anyway, Jesus, when he when he got to his tomb, what did he do? He wept.
Mhm.
He knew that he would raise Lazarus from the dead. He already knew that. Yet he wept because he had emotion. There's nothing wrong with emotion, but there is something wrong when it gets beyond your control and you're not living up to what you should be living to, up to your potential, when it's affecting home life, when it's affecting work, when it's just affecting life. Time to seek help. So I started going to this therapy, and he taught me things like that. He taught me just small things that make such a huge difference, like early morning light exposure. A lot of these things was also to help my circadian rhythm and to help me sleep, but also just to kind of, relax.
Yeah.
And we don't realize how amped up we are all the time. You've been sitting at home and your microwave go off and you jump up,
Mhm.
act, or your wife come in the room after you just got home from work and starts talking. You're like, I wish she'd shut up.
All the time.
And it's like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
So he taught me things like that, like grounding, cold plunge. We don't we don't give exercise enough credit. Go pick up something heavy. Go for a
Absolutely.
walk. Yeah. Stuff like that. And I understand when you get depressed, it's even harder to do it.
Mhm.
But those things are so important that we got to do those, and we got to do those things. But we carry a lot of weight in this job from things we see that, like I said, the therapist may not understand, but they can help get you through it.
Yeah.
And I can remember a call, and once again, I'm gonna be very vague to protect privacy. I was on an ambulance, get called out to a code blue for someone who was actually younger than me. Now they weren't there, but they are now. But it was on a holiday, and we get there, and the driver of the ambulance backed it in. I get out of the ambulance, I walk around back. I met a little blonde hair, blue eyed girl, looked like she was probably 8 years old. And I guess, all the family was there at the holiday. All the family's there, a real great scene.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so this little girl, I guess she escaped during the chaos. She meets me at the back of the ambulance. She says, will you please save my, and she said what she called the parent. And man, I could still hear that. And it wasn't so much that the patient died that bothered me. It was the next morning, I was sitting home, celebrate holiday. Anybody's listening to this probably like, "That guy needs some help. He's cracking up on the podcast." But, uh, you know, it's things like that that we carry that will always carry, that we just learn how to do. Because how many times have you been on a tragedy? 2 hours later, you're sitting on the couch, eating popcorn with the wife. Hard to hard to make that transition.
Yeah.
You think about a police officer out here at 6 o'clock in the evening, gets a call. Next thing you know, they're fighting for their lives. Somebody's resisting them, amped up on dope or whatever the case may be, or maybe they're your size, and they're trying to not die.
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the evening, at 7:30 in the evening, they're at home in the floor with their son wrestling on the floor. How do you turn that on? Can't.
Yeah, no, you don't.
So you just have to learn ways to cope. So, you know, talk about negative. When I got through this, when I got in my funk, I got negative. I got negative about the job. I got negative about life. I got negative about everything. And I don't have, this is just my own anecdotal evidence. I don't have any science to back this up. But when you get on social media, you fall into an algorithm. If you like fried chicken, baseball, and Chevy trucks, that's what's going to be on your algorithm. They may throw you a bone every now and then if you like it. The algorithm may build. But I've noticed that your brain gets in an algorithm.
Yeah.
And if you focus on negativity, you speak negative things, our words have the power of the life and death. So, therapist told me, pay attention to what you're paying attention. Well, there's a lot to that. And there's a reason the Bible tells us, whatsoever things are pure, just, true, virtuous, righteous, to focus on those things. Because it's easy to get in the pigeonholed into negative.
Yeah.
Now, the sidebar there, but I just want people to know. And that was my whole reason for coming on here. Of course, I like to talk about the fire service, Key Hall, and do all that. Go on my soapbox. If I can convince anybody, seek help. The victim.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one reason why I wanted to do this. 'Cause you're right. And I think a lot of, like you were saying, still hearing that little girl. I feel like that's what, I mean, I know for me, it's the same way. It's not really the victims that keep you up at night. I mean, maybe something just crazy might, but most of it's the family. Hearing that mom scream, hearing the
Yeah.
kids cry. That's the stuff that's what wakes you up at night. And he said that I still got stuff just like you. Well, Malcolm, how he said he can still smell the grass. He can still, a certain sound will take him right back there. I think we all got those.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like now, there for a while when I was having such issues, it was like I was in the movie. I was the character in that movie all the time. Now I can take a step back and I can be the director I gotta be.
Yeah.
I get in the stream, but I don't get swept away with the stream.
Mhm.
And that's a victory.
Yeah.
That's I don't want to hit these because that's what helps hold me.
Yeah.
But I do want to control.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
Just remembering on is what makes you good. And know that kind of sound. I don't want it to sound arrogant or cocky, but like you said, experience. Experience makes you better.
Yeah. And in this job, and you think about the line of duty deaths in the fire service the last 25 years, other than 2001 and 2020 with COVID was an anomaly. We had more. But other than that, they've been declining for the most part. Line of duty death.
Yeah.
So they figured out that cancer is killing us a lot. So they went after cancer. I remember when I first started, you had couches in the engine bays. You didn't have the exhaust systems on the truck. Uh, City of Massill's got an expert for cancer. I guess you call it an SOP, where we decon with a hose our equipment on scene before we get the truck, not carry it back in the truck. And when you get back to the station, we also have these little wipes. Kind of look like baby wipes that while you're on scene, wipe your neck, wipe everything you can without being vulgar,
Yeah.
and you clean that stuff off of you. Then when you get back to the station, we are required to take a shower. And you say, well, you got to require a grown man to take a shower, but you think about you have a fire at 0500 and you're out there till 6:30. You come back. By the time you get everything settled, it's time to go home. You're like, I'll just take a shower at home. Well, what have you done? You've allowed that stuff to seep into you that much more, taking it in your car, you're taking it home. So they will pay us overtime to take a hot shower. Nah, I think that's excellent.
Yeah, it is.
Now we have gear extractors and gear dryers at every station. When I first started, you had one at the main station. Now we got them at all stations. So they realized cancer was a problem and they target. And I'm thankful for that. But, and I think mental health is getting there.
Yeah, I
It-
think it's definitely coming around, y'all.
I think that, our generation or your generation younger than me, I guess. But I think my generation has realized the importance. It's time to end the stigma because, I talked about the line of duty death and then the cancer death. So those things weren't killing us. Our training had gotten better. Our gear had gotten better. But what did we do? Started killing ourselves.
Yeah.
More of us died from suicide than we do in the line of duty. And it's the same way with the veteran population. And I'm not here to knock pharmaceuticals. I didn't talk about this earlier when I talked about getting out of the military, but I had talked to my mom after I had that suicide thought, and I didn't tell her anything of that scale, obviously. But I did tell her I was worrying a lot. And, that's what I said. I'm just worrying a lot, Mom. And look, he was a nurse, talking to a doctor. They put me on it was called a Pector. And I'm sure the pharmaceuticals work for somebody. They did. I'm not on here giving medical advice by any, but they weren't good for me. You could have come up, set my hair on fire, and I wouldn't really cared. And going back to the veteran population, that's what the VA wants to be. So many times, the guys that that did kick in doors, did face combat, did the terrible, terrible things that their country asked them to do. Now their country just says, "Oh, here, take a pill," and they're dying in the parking lot. VAs all across this country.
No.
Yeah, kind of get related to another soapbox, right?
No, but it's true. And like you said, I think it is coming around. I think they are starting to target it more. So I've just got a few more questions for you before I let you go. So I know you're very strong in your faith. So what is showing the love of Christ at the firehouse look like?
Well, I think we could sum it up. Sum it up by what I talked about earlier is treating others the way we want to be treated. When the Pharisees were trying to trip up Jesus, they asked him, "What's the greatest commandment?" He said, "Love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Treat your neighbor as yourself."
Yeah.
Did you ever see that meme of Jesus out talking and he said, "Treat your neighbor as yourself"? Somebody said, "Who's my neighbor?" He said, "It's whoever you don't want me to say."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that we want to. We don't have a problem treating people we like
Mhm.
as ourselves. That's no problem. Treating that, treating the new guy that you think's below you as yourself. Treating the guy you don't really like that much as yourself, like you would want to be treated. So I think that's the big thing. And I know there's gonna be people that listen to this and they're gonna say, "Man, I've heard Jared say bad things. I've seen him pop off to people. You name it. I've done it probably." that's the beauty of grace. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. But so to me, not a perfect factor, I'm off the hand. But yeah, just treating others the way you want to be treated is the love of Christ in the firehouse. And it's the love of Christ everywhere.
Yeah. So one last thing, and I ask everybody this: if your name was to come up around the kitchen table years after you retire, what do you hope they say about you?
Uh, that I treated people fairly.
Mhm.
That I looked on others with compassion. That, whether I was in the trailer park or the country club, that I looked at people the same. Oh, and I know I hadn't always done that, but I'm trying. That I had self control.
Yeah.
That I had gentleness. That when when I walked in the room, people that all or people didn't leave.
Mhm.
People didn't go, "Oh, here."
Oh God.
Yeah, that that I made people laugh. That I was fun to work with. That people enjoyed working with me. That kind of thing. It's like you said earlier about the blood pressure thing. If if a few people here and there say, "Hey, Jared helped me along the way," that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly not wrapped up in if someone says Jared was a good firefighter.
Mhm.
I don't. I can't put a label or that's so subjective. Good firefighter.
Yeah.
But a good person, everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
So I would like that.
Yeah. I think it will. I mean, I know you made an impact on me, and I know countless other guys that I told them that I was going to interview you, and they all had a story about you. Logan Adams, Colton Ashby, all those guys. So, and that's the craziest part is, you're like, most time it's after somebody dies. Somebody will die, and then you hear all these great stories of how they were, things they did that made a difference to somebody, but they never tell them that, and I think that should happen.
Sure. Yeah. Uh, Funny you say that. At my in-laws' house on birthday, that's what we would do. Go around in a circle, and it's hard to me. It's hard to sit there and listen to someone play something good about.
Oh, yeah.
That's an awkward moment.
Yeah.
But we do that on birthdays. Go around and it's Ashley's birthday. Let's all go around and say something we like about it. And it sounds trivial. It sounds minor, but better than saying it at her funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, and I'm gonna start doing it. You're right.
Yeah. And I also think I don't mean to prolong you here, but I also think that's one of our downfalls in the firehouse is that we don't talk to each other much.
Yeah.
You walk in any firehouse across the country right now, if there's 8 guys sitting in a recliner, probably all 8 of them on a cell phone,
Yeah.
just looking at a cell phone. I think it's important that we talk to each other, get to know each other. It's a different job in the aspect of how long you're there, what you do while you're there, living together, and I think a lot of times, you think back 25 years ago, those guys played cards, played board games, played pool, probably sat down in the bay and smoked cigarettes,
Yeah.
things that we can't do. But, they each other because they didn't have a phone consuming all their time. And so, I fall victim to it too. We all get on there and start looking at YouTube shorts, and next thing you know, it's 30 minutes gone by. Your brain's mush. But it's important to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's good for good camaraderie. It's good mental health. It's good. It's just good all around. So, I know I had a guy filling in out there on my crew a couple weeks ago that I had never worked with, a young guy about 22. I probably got on to her. I talked to him somewhat, but I wanted to know about him. I never worked with him before. How am I going to know about him if all we do is sit there and look at Facebook while we're in a recliner next to each other? All right, that's another soapbox. I'll step up.
No,
But
no, you're
I,
good.
I think I think it's important.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. I mean, you trust these guys with your life, maybe, and I want to know you.
And just real quick on the mental health thing. Uh, After I started seeing a therapist, it had been a few weeks. They called all of us. We have 4 stations in Massville, and they called us all downtown. And this lady just happened to be there talking to us about mental health. And I was like, okay, Lord, I hear you. I was like, I will tell these guys what's been going on with me. Didn't want to. It's hard to it's hard to stand up in front of 20 men that are the best people you know,
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I've been struggling." But I felt it was important. Felt as I'm in an officer position that wasn't really worth my salt if I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I had guys come up to me afterwards in private, say, "Thanks." They said, they said, "I've been struggling too," you know. So sometimes that's all it takes, just to hear someone else's story.
Mhm.
So uh, I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about that because, like you said, me or you, either one might never hear that this mattered to anybody, but you know it does because it matters to me when I listen to it, you know? So I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you taking time with younger guys. I mean, it really does set them up for success. You know, you being nice to me on that blood pressure call, it's something you probably don't even remember. It's just minute, but it was a big deal to me, and I think that's a big thing. And I appreciate you doing that.
Like, like I said, don't take much to leave a positive impact. But and it doesn't take takes even less to leave a negative.
Yeah.
You got to decide the legacy you want to leave
Mhm.
and live by it, stand by it.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to say that I haven't asked you about?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think covered it well. We've been here for a while, taking your time. But once again, man, I'm just proud of you. You, you've owned it. You've stepped up to leading this department as well as doing this podcast. Where I know it's not easy. It's not easy to sit around and listen to yourself talk. I'll probably cringe a bunch when I hear that. But I just appreciate what you're doing. I wish you all the best. Just keep it up.
Thank you.
Keep grinding.
I do appreciate it. So I'll let you go. And once again, man, thanks for the bailing.